We are gathered here today to mourn the death of PC gaming. Prices, not for PCs, but for PC parts, have doubled. You will be paying thousands of dollars for a piece of hardware that was already overpriced, that already could not compete with consoles, that the console that Valve has produced was already ludicrously expensive, and so we have to kneel. We have to concede that the Nintendo Switch 2 is the most cost-effective console on the market, that not a single piece of gaming hardware can compete, that everything else is overpriced slop produced in China, just complete garbage. What was this? You know, people will look back and remember Sega versus Nintendo. People will look back and remember Sony versus Nintendo, a 25-year war, okay? Half the length of time of the 50 years war in Final Fantasy Tactics. And yet, the PC gamers didn't even get to fight. The PC gamers are the real-world equivalent of the island in the Indian Sea that's cut off from the rest of the world. You know, they live there like 20,000 years in the past, like tribal, primitive animals, while console gamers get to explore and enjoy the wider world. All of these great video games exclusive to Nintendo platforms that will never, ever see a release on PC. That is what we're seeing here today. The death of the gaming PC. Even Grums, one of the biggest Valve cocksuckers in the industry, who would gladly pay Gabe Newell to suck his cock, even he is saying it's over. You know, what else do you have to fall back on? You know, what can you do? Like, like you can't do anything. You are complete slop. You've lost. You failed. Like, PC is getting more and more outrageous, more and more out of control, more and more expensive, and those of you who are smart will simply just stick with the hardware you already have. The outdated hardware that won't be able to play Grand Theft Auto 6 when it comes out. And so it'll be more cost effective and better to simply buy the game on Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes out. Even Grand Theft Auto can't save you. Fortnite can't save you. Minecraft can't save you. Like Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is the lowest selling COD on record. You know, even the annual sports games have found their way on Nintendo Switch. You know, what exactly are you looking forward to on your gaming PCs? Like, what are you going to do? Like, pay some weirdo on Patreon to implement some nude mods into the new Tomb Raider? You know, are you going to, like, pirate Street Fighter 6? You know, are you going to drive all these AAA companies out of business because you don't want to? Like, no. PC gaming is over. It was never really a thing. You know, PC gaming was shot in the cradle by the Xbox, okay? It never went anywhere. The NES put a stop to the fledgling PC gaming market back in the 80s. You know, none of those games were as relevant as Mario. Nobody knows what an Ultima is. You know, actually, when people think of Ultima, they think of the spell in Final Fantasy VII. You know, they don't think of the video game IP. They don't think of, like, any of this. You know, nobody cares about PC gaming. And I am sick to death of terminally online spurgs acting if it's on the verge of some renaissance. I'm sick of them acting as if this thing is like super cost effective if you just like hunt for deals online, if you buy you just pirate everything and you just hang on to the same piece of hardware for like a decade. Like, it's totally more affordable than consoles, bro. Like, that is completely and totally wrong. You know, even with as outrageous the prices, even with how outrageous prices on Xbox and PlayStation are, they're still objectively more affordable places to play games than a gaming PC. They are not better. They do not offer more utility. They aren't cheaper. Like anybody who says otherwise is just deluding you. This is not an unusual circumstance. All that's happening with PC parts price doubling is just that we are beginning to see the beginning, just kind of the wizard behind the curtain, like, well, PC parts are cheaper if you just buy the cheapest parts on the market. Like, that's not a thing. Like, it's just like, it's a giant cope. It is a giant cope. I remember when like you would have weirdos like Linus Tech Tips try and tell you that it was perfectly possible to build a PC on a $500 budget that was more powerful than a PS4. And this dude, this professional tech YouTuber, couldn't do it. He had to concede and kneel and admit that it just couldn't be done because you have to get the premium, most expensive parts in order to compete with dedicated gaming hardware. And that's always been true. That will always be true. You will never have a gaming PC outperform a console. Even John Carmack will tell you that. So that's the end of PC gaming. It's over. Like, never even got to fight a console war. Steam Machine is just, wasn't even like a thing. Like, it didn't even get a release date before people like started mentioning the price and how this console was super overpriced for what it was. Like people are beginning to ask questions, and they're beginning to like see the reality of PC gaming and not this weird whitewash narrative that terminally online spurgs have built up over the past several decades. Like, this was a complete joke. Okay, the PC Master Race narrative should never have gotten as far as it did. It was always overpriced. It was always ridiculous. It was always just a complete waste of everyone's time. And yet we were told it was better than console by people who don't even play on or know anything about video game consoles. Like, that's the reality of it. When you have people like Review Tech USA, people who don't know the first thing about tech advocating for the PC Master Race, it's over. That guy couldn't get a job at Best Buy. Okay, even the Geek Squad wouldn't take him. That's how little Review Tech USA knows about tech, about technology, about video games, about consoles. And he is far from the only one. Every single PC gamer is like this. They need to understand that consoles, specifically Nintendo consoles, have won the gaming war. What Doom movie have you seen recently? Zelda has far surpassed Skyrim. Metroid is bigger than ever. Kirby, like, you have these dozens of amazing Nintendo IPs, and meanwhile, you guys are still playing StarCraft like it's 1998. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, the best game ever made, launched that year. And we've gotten dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds even, of Nintendo games in the years since. And you have spent that entire time playing the same tired, boring, derivative RTS game for the past 30 years. Talk about sad.